Zeppelins, Sabbaths, Who, Stones, and Beatles were gone. All our favorite bands. No one guy, which is fascinating since I'm not making Keith or Lennon. I believe that contributes to our band's longevity. Chad Smith, Red Hot Chili Peppers' crazy drummer, needs little introduction. He doesn't give extended speeches at award shows or start scandals to stand out. He can rock the stage with one tight, furious, rhythmic attack. Chad Smith keeps the band together with Anthony Kiedis as the performance soul, Flea as the wild tornado, and John Frusciante as the reclusive genius. He's quiet, deliberate, and persistent, like a funk rock machine so exact it's nearly unnoticed. Behind the drum kit, who is Chad Smith? A silent artist who faded into the background, or a lost soul who slowly reassembled with every beat? He has been Red Hot Chili Peppers' longest-serving drummer for nearly 30 years, carrying the band through everything. Platinum records, sold-out world tours, addiction, loss, breakups. Stumbled. He caused trouble. Lived like there was no tomorrow. Then started over to live on rhythm and missed nothing. Despite not being born to be a star, Chad Smith became the silent heartbeat of one of the world's finest bands. Perhaps only when we step away from his drums can we see the multifaceted, emotional, and unpredictable guy. Early life. Chad Smith was born October 25, 1961. Born in St. Paul, Minnesota, to middle-class Jewish Americans. Chad, the youngest of 3 siblings, was raised in an unstable home. As a child, his parents divorced. He went to Bloomfield Hills, a wealthy Michigan suburb, with his mother and siblings after the divorce. However, young Chad never felt like he belonged in his calm, wealthy neighborhood. Chad was energetic, disobedient, and uninterested in school from an early age. He once said he couldn't sit for 10 minutes. He was always hearing sounds, rhythms, and imaginary drums. Teachers had issues with Chad. Peers saw him as the mastermind behind every prank. Music didn't find Chad through school, from the radio, and his older brother's vintage rock tapes. He volunteered as a drummer for the 5th-grade band despite having no experience. That moment ignited a deep love for drumming, not based on theory or technique, but on the impulse to match the beats in his thoughts. Chad emulated John Bonham, Led Zeppelin, Ian Pace, Deep Purple, and Buddy Rich. He sweated alone in the garage every day, replaying drum parts he heard. Despite having no formal instruction, Chad quickly developed a groove-heavy style that combined rock precision with funk fluidity. Chad was the crazy kid at school as a teenager, unconcerned about grades, always dressed in worn-out clothes, smiling wide, and chatting about music. He played in many student bands, performing at local bars before he could drink. In those smoky, beer-stained venues, a rebellious drummer was quietly developing, learning without education. No one expected this uncredentialed, naughty child with no future plan to become a world-famous drummer. For Chad Smith, music wasn't an option. In a maelstrom he couldn't explain, it was his only hope. Early career. Chad Smith didn't attend conservatories after high school. He didn't consider college either. Drumming in small-time Detroit bands, living barely, and playing at any pub that paid gas, he played music like it was his sole job. Chad played drums for any band with a drum kit and a chance in the early 1980s, regardless of genre. Detroit was turbulent and dynamic, and garage rock, punk, and metal bands grew like weeds. But as Chad played, he realized he was stuck. 0 record deals, no direction. Music was his passion, but life was a stalemate. Chad boldly left Detroit at 26 in 1988, when many musicians had given up. Go cross-country to Los Angeles and take one last shot in the city that birthed or failed music dreams. He brought only a dilapidated drum kit and a vague hope that it wasn't too late. Fate put him in LA at the appropriate time. Red Hot Chili Peppers, a raucous funk rock band, were in crisis after guitarist Hillel Slovak died of a heroin overdose and drummer Jack Irons left. They wanted a drummer who could help the band thrive, not just keep time. The audition was oddly simple. Chad entered, said little. The band requested a song. He nodded. Several more followed. Flea and Anthony Kiedis agreed at the end. This guy's unlike anyone we've ever met. Just what we need. Some stated Chad won the job because he was as crazy as them and performed well. His funky groove, muscular power, and eccentric attitude helped him fit in like he'd always been a Red Hot Chili Peppers member, just a few years late. Chad and the band started Mother's Milk, 1989, right away. The album transformed RHCP from funny oddballs to an unstoppable rock-funk hurricane, yet it is not a masterpiece. Chad, the outsider, the Detroit hire, joined a band that would change rock music for a decade. Career success. Blood Sugar Sex Magic, recorded in 1991 with Rick Rubin, launched Red Hot Chili Peppers' career into a golden age. It was more than a turning point for the band. It was where Chad Smith first demonstrated he was the right drummer and defined RHCP's sound. The band resided in a vintage Los Angeles estate for weeks to stay creative while recording the album. With his tall backward cap and powerful arms, Chad became irreplaceable. He did more than create the groove for Give It Away and Suck My Kiss. He gave the sad ballad Under the Bridge spirit. RHCP went from niche to global rock icon with the 13 million copy record. Success was costly. The attention overwhelmed John Frusciante, who left the band mid-tour. The group failed, but Chad didn't. He maintained musical and emotional rhythm. After lineup changes, RHCP released new music. The band didn't revive until 1999's Californication, with Frusciante's return. Again, Chad Smith's drumming powered Scar Tissue, Around the World, and Other Side. No flash, no frills, simply groove, measured, precise, and deeply felt. RHCP entered their second golden age after that. By the way, 2002. More lyrical and complex, but grounded by Chad's steady drumming. Arcadium Stadium, 2006. An ambitious, Grammy-winning double album put the band among rock's elite. The Getaway, 2016, Boundless Love, and the Dream Canteen comeback in 2022 all confirmed that Chad Smith was the irreplaceable backbone no matter the roster or period. Chickenfoot, a supergroup with Joe Satriani, Sammy Hagar, and Michael Anthony, showcased Chad's artistic range beyond RHCP. He performed traditional hard rock there, proving he was more than a funk rock drummer and could thunder over strong chords. He established the funk instrumental band Chad Smith's Bombastic Meatbats, known for its jamming and improvisation. Chad also became a sought-after session drummer, working with Ozzy Osbourne, Post Malone, Johnny Cash, Dua Lipa, and Lady Gaga. Chad never sought stardom in any undertaking, just kept time. Allow his drumming to complement his comrades rather than overpower them. Artists returned because of that, not for glory, but for the comfort of Chad Smith behind them. Trouble and Disputes. Chad Smith had a bright smile and energetic drumming style, yet he nevertheless experienced the pandemonium most rock musicians do. However, he never made it public. In silence, Chad endured and rebuilt himself. As Red Hot Chili Peppers became famous in the 1990s, Chad's life was filled with parties, tours, sleepless nights, and booze. Despite not using Frusciante or Kiedis, he subsequently claimed that drinking had let him escape the blinding light of celebrity. Some nights, he performed half-conscious. In some mornings, he couldn't recall which city he was in. No one blamed Chad of damaging the band's career, but his lack of control backstage caused tension in the already tight group. Chad quietly understood he was drifting off the road he had battled so hard to construct. After becoming a father, he stopped. Chad changed without rehab or scandal. After seeing his small daughter napping in the morning, he decided enough was enough. He quit drinking, stopped crazy parties, concentrated on family, worked out, painted, and joined youth music education initiatives. He slowed down to drum deeper, not louder. One public debate remained despite the peace. Chad jokingly mimed cleaning his, but with the Kazakh flag at a fan event in Cairo in 2014, a foolish comedy that went viral and outraged Kazakhstan. Chad publicly apologized for the disrespectful act and promised to never do it again after considerable criticism. The incident woke people up. He learned that even minor deeds can have serious consequences as a cultural hero. Since then, Chad is more mindful. No more silly theatrical jokes or clowning around. He still laughs, but with maturity and bounds. Chad isn't unique because he never fell. He got up after every stumble without asking for pity or making excuses, calmly correcting course and moving forward. No drama, no odd drums. Personal life. If the stage was where Chad Smith let his emotions loose and played like there was no tomorrow, his personal life was a long journey of exploration and scars that ended in serenity. In the early 1990s, Chad briefly married model and actress Maria St. John. Their daughter Manon was born, but Chad was still engulfed in celebrity and touring. The divorce and his growing estrangement from his daughter were his biggest regrets from his youth. After that came years of bachelorhood with brief romances and a carefree appearance. Chad realized he no longer wanted to party as he got older. He wanted stability because he was fatigued from a nonstop life, not because society expected it. He met interior architecture teacher Nancy Mack, who was unrelated to the entertainment sector. They married and had 3 sons. Chad wasn't a famous drummer with Nancy, He just needed calm, someone to listen, and a home. Family transformed Chad. He said he doesn't play drums for the joy of music. I play to demonstrate accountability. I must retain the rhythm for the band and the kids watching from behind the stage. After having 4 children, Chad began organizing free music courses, pushing for arts education in U.S. public schools, and supporting music therapy programs for autistic children. Not everything in Chad's life has gone well, but he learned to stay grounded and no longer avoid family dinners or his children's gays. A person who earlier lived as every day was his last show may have found it difficult to mature by caring for a property. In person, Chad Smith may still wear his cap backward, smile widely, and adore a good joke. But beneath that smile is a man who has learned to live in time, without rushing, hiding, or wasting what matters. Legacy and influence in a music world that glorifies the spotlight. Chad Smith, generally concealed behind drums, became a symbol of greatness via silence and consistency. He defined impact with every beat that united a generation, not center stage presence. Chad, Red Hot Chili Peppers' longest-serving drummer, witnessed and sustained the band's growth. Chad was unshakable through raw funk rock, introspective alternative, tumultuous years, and global sold-out tours. The only member that never left RHCP was him, and it wasn't just loyalty, but quiet resilience that few musicians have. Chad drums with classic rock structure, funk fluidity, and genuine emotion. Technical flash wasn't his goal. He focused on groove, those addictive rhythms that made songs breathe and make you nod. Without copying, he learned from Bonham. Buddy Rich inspired him without copying. Chad's unique journey made him a role model for a generation of drummers. His legacy goes beyond rhythm. Chad made the rock drummer more than a shadowy figure. He became a responsible, grounded, creative artist outside the drum kit. He proved that drummers can collaborate, lead, and mentor young musicians. Chad has created abstract paintings with drumsticks dipped in paint, which have been shown in US and European galleries. These artworks shed light on a sound artist, showing depth with color and motion. Perhaps Chad Smith's greatest legacy isn't Grammys, record sales, or stage numbers. He made the world recognize something crucial. A band can lose a singer. Guitarists can be replaced. But without the appropriate drummer, everything falls apart. Chad Smith was Red Hot Chili Peppers' unwavering backbone. Current life Chad Smith, 63, is still going strong. Chad plays drums every night, on stage, in the studio, and at the core of Red Hot Chili Peppers, whereas many of his peers have retired or only infrequently perform. RHCP returned with their legendary lineup, featuring John Frusciante, in 2022 and released 2 albums. Unlimited Love and Return of the Dream Canteen were long, experimental records, but Chad didn't care. Instead, his drumming became more solid, flowing, and meaningful. He once said, "I don't need to play faster, just more appropriately to the atmosphere, music, and time." Chad's extraordinary durability continues in 2025. He and RHCP performed at Fire Aid, a January Hollywood Bowl charity performance for Los Angeles wildfire victims, with Lady Gaga, Billie Eilish, and Sting. He presented a trophy at the Grammy Awards with Anthony Kiedis to pass on the beat. Chad recorded Who Believes in Angels with Elton John and Brandi Carlile and performed on CBS in April. He never overshadowed the song, but his drumming always grounded it. This year's Cannes Film Festival featured Chad's narration of a Red Hot Chili Peppers documentary about their origins. To preserve the heritage of a band that survived many breakdowns to survive today. Chad and the RHCP members also announced that they are writing and recording a new album for late 2026 or 2027. They've continued for over 30 years because there's still music, an audience, and stories to tell. Chad's life isn't glamorous. In California, he cooks, exercises, paints, drives his kids to school, and volunteers for community music education. "I lived like there was no tomorrow," he remarked. "Now I expect to see my kids grow up." Despite the fast-paced music industry, Chad Smith still plays in time and lives with passion, and never losing a beat in life or music. Magazine covers have never featured Chad Smith. He doesn't express lofty artistic ideologies, shock for attention, or try to grab the spotlight from his bandmates. However, his stillness makes him irreplaceable. Chad has stuck with Red Hot Chili Peppers for over 30 years, through every detour, breakup, and reunion. He is the lone member of a notoriously chaotic band that never lost direction. The center around which other artists orbit, sometimes in conflict, sometimes breaking, but never falling apart. Awards and drum solos aren't Chad's legacy. An artist keeps everything going steadily, precisely, and with great feeling. A location few see. He leaves a quiet beat that energizes a tune. In a world where individuals battle for center, Chad Smith stands behind. He becomes modern rock's strongest foundation with that choice. If you've ever bobbled your head to Can't Stop, cried to Under the Bridge, or grinned at a tall guy in a backward cap pounding like he's dancing, then maybe you've heard Chad Smith's voice, a man who doesn't need to speak to be remembered. Just keep the pace. Leave a comment if Chad Smith's story surprised, moved, or brought back a familiar rhythm. When did you first listen to Red Hot Chili Peppers, and which song made you notice Chad's drumming? To not miss the following stories about those who appear in the background but carry the weight of music, like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell.